President Biden isolated, quite literally, with COVID, but also isolated politically as pressure mounts on him to bow out of the race for the White House. That was President Biden arriving in Delaware last night after canceling a campaign event in Las Vegas. Reporters there asking the president to respond to reporting from ABC News that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told Biden it would be best if he dropped out. Biden's response inaudible over Air Force One's engines. Schumer's office declined to comment on the specifics of the meeting, saying he, quote, conveyed the views of his caucus. Those questions came just hours after Adam Schiff became the most prominent Democrat to call on Biden to step aside, the California congressman, now the 21st Democratic lawmaker to do so, following waves of defections after Biden's debate performance 3 weeks ago. We also learned that President Biden met with mega donor Jeffrey Katzenberg on Wednesday. According to Semaphore, Katzenberg told the president that he could no longer count on big checks from big donors, not to his campaign, not to the DNC, not even to the super PACs supporting them. In the evening, as Republicans cheered on the floor of the RNC in Milwaukee, our Jeff Zeleny reporting this development from one of his senior Democratic sources.
He's being receptive, not as defiant as he is publicly. Goes on to saying, talking about Vice President Kamala Harris, who initially he wondered how she may fare in a campaign should it come to that. I'm told now he's asking questions saying, do you think Kamala can win?
Joe Biden more receptive to these calls. Joe Biden asking, do you think Kamala can win? CNN then reporting that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke privately with Biden, telling him that polling shows he cannot defeat Donald Trump. Pelosi further warned Biden that his presence on the ticket could destroy Democrats' chances of retaking the House in November. A House Democrat telling me last night that Pelosi's, quote, working on it, and that, quote, she rarely loses. The White House declined to comment on details of CNN's reporting, but did say, quote, President Biden is the nominee of the party. He plans to win. Our panel's here. Joining me now, Brad Todd, former senior advisor to Rick Scott's Senate campaign. Alex Thompson, national political reporter for Axios. Jason Osborne, former senior advisor to Trump's 2016 campaign. And Karen Finney, former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Welcome to all of you as we cover the RNC in Milwaukee and we talk instead about the president of the United States. Karen's already been in the hot seat. So Alex, let me start with you because there's honestly no one better to talk to in terms of digging into Biden world and exactly what is going on. And what is your latest reporting around where the president's head is? Jeff Zeleny was first last night to report that he's perhaps more receptive to these calls. What do you know?
Well, think about all of these meetings that we're talking about right now with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. Thing to remember, they were all last week. The fact that they're coming out now and Joe Biden has still been publicly defiant shows you a little bit of where his head's at. And the truth is that you could have almost every Democrat in Congress basically speak out, but if Joe Biden still at his core believes that he is the most electable Democrat to take on Donald Trump, he is going to stay in this race. There's almost a religious conviction among him and his inner circle. And unless you give him irrefutable polling evidence that the other Democrat would be more electable, I just don't see how he gets out of this race. Now, maybe that evidence exists, but it's also very difficult. How can you poll a hypothetical? Joe Biden does not want to be sitting on his couch on the night of November 5th, having seen Donald Trump win and not having been the nominee. You saw him talk about this in George Stephanopoulos. At the very least, he wants to be the guy to take on Trump. And how do you get him to move off of that position? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are trying, and they tried several days ago, but clearly that has not worked.
So, I mean, the reporting from Jeff is that he has gone from saying Kamala can't win to saying, can Kamala Harris win? I mean, that's to your point.
Yes.
So you think that's the thing that changes him, numbers that would clearly show someone else doing better?
Yes. I think if someone were to unambiguously, absolutely show that someone else had a better chance against Donald Trump, that would be the only thing that can move him. I just don't know if that's possible in polling.
I think the other piece of this, though, having been with candidates when you have to make tough decisions, there has to be and I'm not saying he's getting out, so let me just be clear. There has to be a pathway. You can't, because in addition to everything you're saying in terms of the data, there's also the recognition, okay, it's not, if you get to the place where you decide it can't be me, all this, George Clooney in public sort of saying you shouldn't be in is not the way to actually get him to say, okay, I'm going to do it. Like people have to figure out, how do you honor the fact that he has been an excellent president and has, had so many successes? And the second thing I would say is we're not reporting on it, but he is also hearing from a lot of people who are saying, stay in, Joe. I'm part of a group of prominent Black female leaders who will be having a letter come out today who are saying he was at the NAACP, he was at Unidos. When you also have Liz Shuler, right? So when you have other big leaders saying, don't get out, we're talking about the 20 of 200.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. This isn't the desire to be president is an ambition curable only by a pine box. And so Joe Biden is going to...
It's a good way to put it. I have learned that lesson many times in my
career.
Going to want that is the most succinct way to say it.
President for as long as possible. And Democrats made this bet. A lot of people thought he was too old in 2020, and Democrats cleared the field for him, shielded him from a long, grueling primary campaign, and installed him as the nominee. They asked for this. This was a problem a long time in the making.
Well, Jason Osborne, on the polling question to what Alex was saying, that he needs to see polling that shows other people would do better. The Trump campaign is actually doing that polling. And if my understanding from talking to sources behind the scenes here is correct, they see very clearly that they would rather run against Joe Biden than Kamala Harris. The race seems to change in certain ways. It's a different campaign. But I guess I'm missing, Republicans are clearly seeing the polling that I guess Joe Biden is not wanting to see.
Well, I think the hard part on polling in a situation like this is that the vice president has been untested. You see this all the time in presidential campaigns and primaries. Before somebody actually gets in the race, their numbers can be very high. But once they become the target, I learned this very well with Dr. Carson. We were kind of doing really well for a long time, and then all of a sudden we became the target.
But Joe Biden had a problem before the debate. He had a 38% approval rating before the debate. Kamala Harris owns that approval rating too. And that was a choice as well. Instead of being a bipartisan centrist administration, they gave the left almost everything they wanted. And so that's where they get in this box.
Can I just say that after what happened Saturday, can we please not talk about pine boxes? That seems a little inappropriate.
Sure, fair enough. I think I took what he had to say as the idea that you would eventually pass of natural causes.
Joe Biden's going to want to be president till the last day possible for him to be president. That's a fact. Everyone's known that. He's been running since 1987. Karen, I think it's a totally appropriate idiom for him.
We are not talking about political violence ending anyone's life. Let's be clear, Alex.
Well, and speaking of Joe Biden's ambition, if you actually read his memoir before he ran for president in 2008, he admits that one of his old school instructors brought out an essay from when he was literally in elementary school about how he wanted to be president one day.
But was that his essay?
Hey, let's watch briefly, Alex, because I want you to weigh in on this quickly before we go to break. Joe Biden has evolved in saying what would get him out of this presidential race, and we kind of stacked it all together so you can kind of see his evolution from that George Stephanopoulos interview to yesterday. Let's watch.
If the Lord Almighty came down and said, Joe, get out of the race, I'd get out of the race. The Lord Almighty's not coming down. Unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Unless I get hit by a train, yeah. If there had some medical condition that emerged, if the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem.
This medical condition that might emerge. What's that? How do you explain that? Why is he saying that?
I think he is literally trying to come up with a better answer that unless God tells me to drop out of the race, I'm not going to. I think this is just, the fact is that Dr. O'Connor, Joe Biden's longtime doctor, has cleared him for duty, is also very, very personally close to Joe Biden, has been with him for a long, long time, sees him regularly, also helped treat his son, Beau Biden. I think this is not, I think some Democrats are trying to see, oh, Joe Biden's like opening the door a little bit with these answers. That is not what's happening. Yeah. Joe Biden is just trying to come up with a better answer than, well, if God tells me, I might do it.
He's not, because if he says I'm not fit for duty, then he's not fit to serve till the end of the term. He would if you're not good enough to run, you're not good enough to stay. And so that's the problem. He's not creating an answer here where he's going to acknowledge that he's not up to this.
But I would just acknowledge he's been doing an excellent job. This is a man who literally helped negotiate to get the first round of hostages out of Gaza. And I've been to Israel, and that is what Israelis to a person would tell you. So let's not say this man is not up to the job or doing the job.
I'm with you. Let's keep him in the race.
100%.
Yes, the Republicans unified here. Karen, I think, but for different reasons.